used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Boom. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my Farland DC Multiverse collection. Now, today we will take a look at Commander Steel. Now, this is one that I have really been looking forward to taking a look at. Been seeing a lot of people reviewing him. I did pick him up at Target along with the new Parallax Sinestro, which we will also take a look at pretty soon. This one, once again, a lot of positives, some negatives. Had a lot of fun with him, and he is a very posable and fun figure to have in hand. Some cool stuff that I thought decisions they made with him, and some other things, not deal breakers, but just things that I thought weren't planned out as well with the execution. But I have been looking forward to this one since we saw the images released by Arlen. Now, he does look very patriotic in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also has his data file card. On the front, you have some very nice artwork. Very Alex Ross looking artwork. Really enjoy that. Did come across this image when I was looking up images for the review for Commander Steel. Now, this character, not very talked about. This is a character that goes way back into the lore of the DC Comics universe. He is associated with Justice Society of America, which of course include the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, Jay Garrick, The Flash, and of course, Spectre, among others. Another thing as well is that there has been many different renditions of this character. He's, died in battle, and his sons have lived on the name, cousins, nephews. I mean, it goes the whole spectrum. So there is a lot of different iterations of this character, but it all started very old school around World War II with Hank Haywood and the original Commander Steel. On the back, you do have some information that'll help you out with that. We will add this to the collection. Now, as far as accessories goes, pretty limited. He does come with an array of hands. You have, aside from the fist that I have him with, you have two extra open grasping hands, and definitely a bonus to get a right just relaxed hand and a left pointing hand. Now, these add a lot of options for figure photography, and that is one thing I did enjoy about him. Very photogenic figure, looks really awesome. Although some details are a bit lacking, there are some other things that I really enjoyed. Had some fun with him, added my own little accessories and details, but we will take a look at that later on in the video. But first, let's go ahead and have a closer look at Commander Steel. Now, once again, this is based on the Speeding Bullets, Superman as Batman, also Black Lightning, and the recently reviewed fusion of Batman and Superman. And although I really like the physique of this buck, the musculature is very well proportioned. There are some added sculpted details that you have to look past if you really want to use this buck over and over again. And I really have to say that I do not mind a lot of the reuse. I mean, I'd put a limit on about 100 reuses, which we'll probably never get to. And the reason being, a lot of other companies use basically the same body way more than McFarlane ever will. They've used it up 200, 300 times. So until we reach a body that's been reused 100 times, I could really care less. Then it really doesn't matter to me if it's a reused body, as long as it is done well and fits with the character. So, first impressions, really enjoy the look of this figure. They really captured that Commander Steel. Although there's different costumes and designs, this is pretty much everything put together in one. Now, I would definitely like to see another version of this one. Take away the metallic paint and just do straight white and blue and red, a little bit lighter on the metallic, and change up the eyes on the head sculpt, and you'll have a more traditional Colonel Haywood figure from Commander Steel's original conception. But this is really great. I really like the way he feels in hand. And I can't say enough how he has a really intriguing aura to him. So, really enjoying this figure just in first impressions. Take a look at the head sculpt. Once again, as I said, look at the reference material. They pretty much got everything down pat the way it is in the comics. He has that head crest, slight metallic blue paint on there. The ear covers also have that metallic blue paint. Great head sculpt. McFarlane's really coming along with the head sculpts. I think I noticed that like the Green Lantern head sculpts are done very well. This one's done very well. So McFarlane really hitting their stride on a lot of their head sculpts to a point where we're now getting more good than bad. But once again, that head sculpt is done very well. Let's take a look at the articulation. Looks down good enough, not too much, but you can look down. Looks up slightly as well, a little bit stiff. Now, later on in the video, I will mod the head that we will get a lot more range up and down for the head articulation. You do have right to left, and of course, you could tilt the head for some character. Going down, love the paint applications on the chest. That's another thing. McFarlane doesn't get a lot of credit. A lot of the paint apps recently have been spot on. I mean, the lines are clean, very minimal mispainting that I've seen online or from other reviewers. And the way they executed it going down into the trunks works really well. Now, one thing they did add here is a lot of silver metallic paint, which does give you some contrast with the almost even a powder blue that doesn't have the same metallic blue as the head sculpt. That's fine. It's not a game killer for me. I still really enjoy the paint applications. Take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side, the full tilt-a-whirl at the waist, lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel. You could twist them, get them in some action poses. Now, not too much of a crunch. You do have a slight crunch there. You can mod these to get more out of them. Of course, he could lean back per usual with McFarlane figures, so that is good. Take a look at the shoulder joint. Now, here's one thing I really wish they would have done, and that is add the red paint underneath the bushing. You got that socket and bushing joint that is all silver. So when you do get it in some positions, you can really see the silver underneath. And if they would have made it, half red, half silver, would really go a long way. Now, I could still do this. I just might do it later on just to finish off the figure and take it up a notch higher than what it did. But it's passable. It's not that bad, but you have a lot of range and movement up and down, front to back, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows look really nice. Straighten them out. Now, here's another thing that they did decide to do, and that is going from the shoulder down into the arm. Technically, it's supposed to be a smooth sculpt. Now, I don't mind it so much, even though it has that insulated texture to it, going from the shoulder down into the gloves. But that makes me very curious of how it would look if you just added the silver paint completely, where it has that extra scope work. Just go ahead and make a thick silver. Now, I may be doing this later on. It all depends on how fast I could find a couple of more of these. If I do get an extra one, now I'll have one for custom. And I just may end up painting that thicker line, and I will eventually show you guys that way you can see what it looks like. But down into the gloves, you still have that silver line. Going down into the wrist, you got the 4 ways of articulation at the wrist from McFarlane. And on the other side, you have the same thing. Get them in a T pose really smoothly. Arms above the head, pretty nice. Let's go ahead and move down to the lower body. You got the thighs. He does have nice thigh swivel, and of course, this allows you to move the leg from side to side without having a thigh cut. Kicks up very high, kicks back very far as well, and that is because the trunks are made of rubber, and that allows you to get that range. And when you put them back, they go back to their original shape. Cock out the knee, you do have that McFarlane hip swivel, double jointed knees, straighten them out, up and down at the ankle, right to left, rocker, and of course, toe articulation. And let's go ahead and take a complete look at the lower body. Another thing they did is the stripe that runs down the side of the leg, they once again made it very thin. They didn't encompass that whole rib texture that it has running down the side. So that is another thing I may end up painting completely, and we'll take a look at how it looks, but not in this video. That may have to be later on because that's a lot more work than just, something very quick. But it does move down into the same boots and footwear from the other figures, but it works very well with this Commander Steel. Now, another negative here, and that is that they didn't paint the stripe down at the sculpted ankle ball joints. Now, this has happened with the Wonder Woman and a couple of other figures. I have fixed those as well, so I will do that with this one, and I'll show you guys pretty much how I did it and how it really completes the figure once you paint that stripe on the ankle joint. Take a look at them from the bottom, some tread and some identifying marks. Moving up the back, pretty simple sculpt work, not a lot of design, but you do have some cool texture and wrinkles added to the costume, into the back. Really nice sculpted out back. Looks really good. Pretty awesome, pretty nice looking figure. I think a lot has to do with the colors, the silver and blue, wrapping around with the red, and the head sculpt really ties this character together, gives him a lot of attitude and very fun to take figure photography with. Now, this is not my only Commander Steel figure. Of course, per usual, I have all of the DC Universe classics. So I do have the Commander Steel. Now you can really tell the difference. A lot of people out there, I mean, it's gone down recently, but they really pushed that DC Universe Classics is far superior to McFarlane's DC Multiverse. And you can really tell here how that is just simply not true. I mean, aside from the archaic, limited articulation, just the designs are completely out of date. They did add some really nice blue metallic paint, but the reverse of that is they didn't add the silver paint. And this one also came with no accessories at all. So that's something per usual for a Commander Steel. So you can really see the difference of a 2024 and an early 2000 articulated figure. McFarlane is just, way above the game in articulation and design. Now let's look at some stuff that I did have fun doing, and he's very photogenic, does work in a lot of cool figure photography. Now I added a couple of other hands, surprisingly. There's a lot of hands that work with him. I think these are from Blue Beetle, and the blue really matches well, especially if you can't tell the difference under the lights. To take photos of him, they really blend in well and add a lot more to your toolbox of, different gesturing hands, different poses you could put him in. Really works out well with a couple of alternate hands from all of my hand fodder from McFarlane's DC Multiverse. Now, another thing I thought that looked really cool is I looked up a lot of images of Commander Steel to get some ideas and see what he looked like throughout the years. And there was a couple of photos where he did have a firearm on him. I think one was like a rifle, and later on I saw one that looked more like a shotgun. So I did have this extra harness holster, I guess from Flashpoint Aquaman. This one wasn't being used since I had done a custom of that one. And I had this pump shotgun that really slipped in well as storage for the shotgun. And surprisingly, it looks really good on this Commander Steel. Now, he's not a big user of of guns or anything like that. His powers are more the suit and even his own abilities. He's like super strong. The suit protects him from a lot of gunfire. But he was known to pick up a strap if he had to in battle, so I added this to him. Worked out really well. Very fun taking pictures of him holding the shotgun. I thought it just adds something to him, just so he won't be so bland and kind of milk toast. Just added a little bit of spice to him. That shotgun and the strap and the harness. Now, I changed very minimal things on him, but I will show that to you. And first, I modded the head. Now, this is very simple. I do it with a Dremel, but if you have to, you could do it with a blade. And all you do is notch out a space in the back of the neck and in the front of the neck as well. Depending on how the barbell ball fits in there, you don't want to make it too loose, but you do want to add a little bit more range. Once you have that nice carved out little gap, you don't want to go too far also and ruin the neck and make the head very loose and flopping around. But I've been doing this for a couple of years now, so I pretty much got it down pat. And this adds a lot of articulation. He looks down really well now. And I love the way that the neck matches up with the head. It looks super clean. Once McFarlane really did that well, where the head didn't sit too low or too high. It sits really perfect. And of course, now he looks up really high. Great for posing him, great for added articulation. Now, a little touch that I wanted to add for myself, and that is that he has whited out eyes. And at first, I thought, I know for sure in the original version of him, you can see his eyes. That's pretty much how it was back in the day, in the early years of comic book heroes. But in the modern times, they have whited out his eyes sometimes, which I really enjoy. I prefer characters that have whited out eyes and kind of even adds a little bit of creepy and spooky, like non human feel to them, which I always enjoy. But what I wanted to do was add some radiance to the eyes. Now they are just simply white, and I know that if I add white, it's not really going to make a big difference. But a go to paint that I use is metallic pearl. I've used this on different figures just to give whatever I'm painting, it gives it a little bit more shine, and it did add a little bit to this figure. Now it was really hard to get the eyes just painted in. I even had to go back in and scrape a little bit of like overpaint because I do this with a brush. It's just easier and more detailed work. So in the end, I did get it the way I wanted. Just adds a little bit of brilliance to the eyes, which just augments the aura of the figure a little bit. I really like the way it came out, and it really matches up with the silver paint that they used on the figure. So I added the articulation to the head. I touched up the eyes with a little bit of pearl paint. And the last thing I did was add the paint to the ankles. Now, we have done this before. I talked about it I did Wonder Woman. I did it to Hawkman. There's a couple of other ones I did it to. But for this, I do use spray. Now, I talked about it on my Green Lantern custom that I use that Tamaya metallic paint spray. And this is no different. I used metallic silver. Once again, Tamaya plastic paint. But you do have to know what you're doing. I had to take off the ankles, tape it off, and spray it and let it dry. I do show right here just the pure ankle ball joint with the spray on it. Pretty clean lines by using the taped off method. And once you let it dry and connect everything back together, I do advise like heat up the parts, and that makes it really smooth and it cuts down on any rubbing as well as the type of paint that I use. It just resists a lot of that scratching you might get. That way you could still fully articulate the ankle, but you also have that clean line at the ankle that really finishes the figure off and adds a lot more. Really happy with that. Now, as I said, if I could find a couple more of these and I have one to do custom, I'll add all the silver paint that I was talking about and I'll put it up on Instagram and talk about it in another video. That way you guys could see what it looks like. If you go ahead and completely paint that design line that runs down the legs and down the arms. Anyways, really happy with this guy. Another member of the Justice Society of America that we can add to our collection. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Fat Man.
percent accurate. They do they do tend to be pretty reliable.